Saturday night, UFC 284 in Perth, Australia. Now, American fans, you are getting a little bit of a treat because it's going to be played in prime time for us as well. So prelims start at 8 p.m. Pay-per-view starts at 10 p.m. In Australia, I think it's a 2 p.m. start time. So the main event is Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight champion of the world, taking on Islam Makhachev, the lightweight champion of the world, for the lightweight championship. Volkanovski is moving up from 145 to 155 to challenge for the title. Volk is on a 22-fight win streak. He has 25-1 overall. Hasn't lost since 2013. Biggest wins, I would say, are Aldo Ortega and Max Holloway 3 different times. Now, in terms of I just want to lay this out for you, John. So Volkanovski is 5'6". He's got a 71.5 reach, which is pretty good for 5'6". But this guy used to be a rugby player before MMA. You want to take a guess at how much he weighed in rugby? He weighs in 145 pounds.
I'm gonna guess he was 190.
He was 214 pounds when he played rugby. Yeah, so this was a big boy. Now this is an interesting fight for the mere fact we've got the number 1 pound per pound fighter ranked in the UFC in Volkanovski taking on the number 2 pound for pound fighter ranked in the UFC in Islam. So that has only happened a couple of times in UFC history, I believe. So now we're getting the number 1 versus the number 2 going at it. Listen, Volk is very good everywhere. He's not really great in one area. He would, I guess you would say that old saying, jack of all trades, but master of none. He's very good everywhere, but just doesn't excel at one level, kind of like Islam in terms of wrestling and grappling. He stands out in his volume and his leg shots, leg kicks. Those are really his key weapons that he uses. He's shown he can overcome university. He was rocked twice against Holloway in one of their fights, and he was put in 2 very tight, one being incredibly tight, a guillotine against Brian Ortega, and was able to survive that. So he's shown he can overcome adversity. In terms of Islam, he is defending his newly won lightweight championship for the first time after defeating Charles Oliveira via submission in the second round. He's on an 11-fight win streak. He is 23-1 overall. His last 5 fights, he has finished his opponent, and he hasn't lost since 2015. But this right here against Volk will be his toughest test. Both guys are facing their toughest tests in their entire career this Saturday night. Islam is 5'10", so he's got a 4-inch height advantage and a 70.5 inch reach. So Volk's got a 1-inch reach. It's not that much of an advantage. He's the cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov, but Khabib, like fighting, has also now retired from coaching. He will not be in Islam's corner this Saturday night. Khabib has chosen to spend more time with his family and basically be over there now. So Islam is going without Khabib in his corner, I think for the very first time in his career, if I'm not mistaken. But unlike Khabib, Islam is much more confident and much more comfortable on the feet. He was able to knock Charles Oliveira down. So I wouldn't be surprised. He's going to stand with Volkanovski for a little bit before he even goes for the takedown because he is confident in his stand-up. This is what I see. I see Islam overpowering Volk. I see him getting a finish before the 4th round. I think his wrestling and his grappling is just going to really just melt Volkanovski. It's on another level. The power, the strength, the wrestling. He's been doing it since he was like 3 years old. He's been wrestling bears in the woods of Dagestan, man, on the mountains. All right. This is what he's been bred to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch that Ortega Volk fight, Ortega was able to catch Volk in 2 tight submissions. I think Islam is going to be able to catch Volkanovski too. I think he gets the job done before the 4th round. Like I said, I think Volk's only path to victory is catching Islam. I don't see him winning a decision because it's not if Islam gets a takedown, John. it's when he gets the takedown. And then it becomes, can Volk get up? And even if he gets up, can he get Islam off of him?
Mm.
So the key, the major key to Volk, got to keep your back off the cage. That's your key. Can't let your back get to the cage. Got to keep it standing at any means necessary. But there's no disrespect to Volk. I just see Islam is on another level in terms of wrestling. And once he gets a hold of you, it's going to be a different story. So I think it'll be a great fight, but I do see Islam getting the finish before the 4th round.
I'm trying to pull up the betting odds for this one, ESPN.
I think Islam is the favorite. I don't know by how much. It should be right on the ESPN app.
Mm-hmm.
UFC, I got it. Oh wow, okay, that is much higher. Okay, so Islam is a minus 410 favorite, while Volkanovski is a plus 320 underdog.
Damn.
I mean, obviously your money is going to be more made in with Volkanovski going there, but I would imagine you can probably get a prop bet and bet Islam to get a finish and get some nicer odds there. That's the way I'm going to go with it. And now we got the co-main event. I'm only going to talk about these two fights because if I'm going to be honest, the fight card's okay in terms of a pay-per-view, and now ESPN raising the prices again for pay-per-views and for UFC. Now they're up to $80. It's not the best pay-per-view that you can put on display, especially in Australia. They don't have the biggest Australian stars. I mean, Dan Hooker, Israel Adesanya, Tai Tuivasa, Casey O'Neill. The list goes on and on. They don't have these guys there. So the co-main event is Yair Rodriguez taking on Josh Emmett. Yair is the second-ranked featherweight in the world, and Emmett is the 5th. They're fighting for the featherweight interim championship because Volk is obviously fighting the main event. He's moving up, so they're trying to, in the meantime, these guys are going to be fighting for the interim title. The winner will face Volk later down the year and unify the titles. Yair is a must-watch fighter. His ability, his creativity, his exciting nature, the way he's able to just be spectacular in his striking display is absolutely insane. I think back to one of the craziest and greatest knockouts I've ever seen was his knockout over the Korean Zombie. John, this was a 5-round fight. Yair was losing the fight. This is in the 5th round, sorry, the last round. There's 1 second left on the clock. So at 4:59, Yair is able to, I'm not going to be able to do it justice. He dips low like this. Korean Zombie is coming in, and he's able to chicken wing it with his elbow. So his head cracks the elbow, like literally like this. I don't have the extension. I'll freaking tear my shoulder if I try to do that. I don't know how he was able to generate enough power behind that. But if you ever see that, it's with 1 second left in the round. And if he doesn't land that shot, he loses the fight. And he's able to do it. And it's just one of the craziest. Korean Zombie just crumbles to the floor after getting hit by it.
Yeah, the craft on that one.
It's insane. I mean, at first glance, I didn't know what the hell happened. And then they showed the replay and you're like, how the hell did he generate enough power going that way? I don't know. But the creativity for this guy, that just shows you right there.
Didn't seem like Yair his funny bone that one too.
Yeah, probably. Probably didn't feel good for him either.
It didn't seem like
Yair won his last fight. It was kind of wonky win against Brian Ortega. His shoulder popped out in the middle of a grappling exchange in the first round. It was a little disappointing. It was ruled a TKO for Yair. You can make the case that Yair had something to do with that injury and the reason it's popping out, but that's all subjective, to be honest with you. Emmett has been very overlooked in his UFC career. He's on a 5-fight win streak. He's a pretty good wrestler. He's got really good power. I'm not super familiar with him, but when I look at this fight, I know a lot of people are probably picking Josh Emmett to win. He's the underdog, though. He's plus 155, while Yair is a minus 180. I'm taking Yair. I think Yair is going to be able to get the finish later in the fight. I think his creativity is going to cause some problems for Josh Emmett. I think Josh Emmett's going to leave himself out of position at times. I think Yair is going to be able to capitalize, whether it be with his legs or his crazy elbows or knees or whatever the hell it's going to be that he pulls off. So I'm picking Yair to win this fight and be crowned the interim featherweight championship, and he's going to meet Volkanovski later on in the year to unify those titles. So those are the two fights that I'm covering, the main event and the co-main event. Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett for the interim featherweight title, and the main event, the number 1 and number 2 pound for pound fighters in the UFC, the featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski moving up to lightweight to take on the lightweight champion Islam Makhachev for the lightweight title. This is going to be a big main event. It's in Perth, Australia, the place that I think, yes, Volkanovski, I might get this wrong. I hope Volkanovski's not from New Zealand. I think he's from Australia. So he's going to be fighting in Australia, hometown, home crowd. It's going to be crazy. The Australian fans are wild. They have not been, I forgot to mention this, they have not been back in Australia since 2019, where Israel Adesanya took on Robert Whittaker to unify their middleweight championships. And Adesanya was able to get the finish there in the second round. So, but I apologize to Australian fans. I don't think you're going to go home happy at the end of this night.
Yeah, Volk is from Australia.
Okay, good.
I'm excited to see that fight. That'll be pretty interesting. But
Yes.
like you said, man, the key for Volkanovski can be, trying to overcome the takedown that is inevitable, and that'll be interesting. When it seems like that'll be a tougher matchup for him from the sound of it.
Oh, yeah.